On Focus this morning at 11 o'clock. I'll be hosting that, talking with Mike from Westside Decorating, and we'll look forward to hearing more about what's going on with our sponsor of the Art Lewis Show and the guest scheduled this morning on The Focus Show on WSGW. It is the Art Lewis Show. Those who are regular listeners, perhaps you know. If not, I'll make sure you are aware that Art is off this week. He returns next week. Actually returns Tuesday. Monday is Labor Day. And on Monday, we'll have some special programming. CBS has a special 3-hour Labor Day program hosted by Gil Gross. That's 9 till noon. So Art Lewis will be preempted, the Focus Show, and Terry Henney's Farm Show that day. Of course, markets are closed anyway. So that's between 9 and noon on Monday. Art returns next Tuesday from his time away. Matt Fallon from the Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance has been filling in. He is unavailable today, but he'll return and do some more hosting duties tomorrow and Friday. Next hour, Jonathan Dent and Christiana Malacara will be in. Team up for an hour. My name is Charlie Rood. We had what I thought was going to be a special guest, but apparently that is not going to happen. So we are going to just throw it open and have conversation this hour. As Art would do, we will do too. For your open line chance on WSGW, calling 989-752-6111, should you have comment. By the way, to our friends who might be listening in ways that are having to do without power, we appreciate you finding us in that way. We wish you well. As you're hearing in the news, as thousands of power outages occurred from the storms that moved through yesterday, cleanup still continues. Power restoration continues. Crews are working. That's all I can tell you. It's going to take time, though. In a lot of cases, there has to be cleanup before the power can be restored. Trees that were blown down or limbs and such that have to be removed. That sometimes takes longer than even just the restoration of the power itself. But work is being done. Crews from other states are being called in to help. So hopefully in your area, power is restored as quickly as possible. But please be patient. And if you see some crews working, hey, maybe give them a shout-out and say thanks as they're doing what they can to restore the power as quickly as possible. Again, so the Art Lewis Show on WSGW. Coming up, okay, what is today? It's August 28th, so not next week, but I've got to get my calendar focused properly. September 10th, there's going to be a scheduled debate between Vice President Harris and former President Trump. We do plan coverage of said debate on WSGW. This is the ABC News presidential debate, and we will have coverage. I believe that night is going to be on 100.5 FM, but just wanted to make you aware that will be coming up as we will do our best to cover the opportunities for you to hear from the presidential candidates, if you so choose and care to hear from the presidential candidates. So I throw that open on the table. Just I'd like to know, do I have any of my fellow, and I've talked about this before a few times, and I've had a chance to sit in for Art Lewis. I don't want to use the word don't care, but it's pretty darn close to that. Let's put it this way. I can say don't care about either presidential candidate in this year's presidential election. Care about the election, care about the presidency, don't care about the candidates. Is this the best we can do? Probably a question we can ask at any time in history. Certainly, depending on your personal perspective, you might ask that question when it comes to a presidential choice. Is the best we can do? And I'm talking about, of course, the two main candidates for president. There'll be others that will also be running on the ticket, but not getting the attention because those other parties never get the attention that the major parties get, because they're the ones that, according to what the Presidential Election Commission or what have you, always poll high enough, depending on whatever rankings they do in order to appear for presidential debates. We never get others on the stage, which is a shame, especially in this election. An election that features, well, who do I pick on first? Let's start with the former president. Really? Republicans? This is the best you can do. You had 4 years to find somebody else to step up as a leader, and you couldn't do it. Nobody else in that grand old party was grand enough. That's pathetic. It really is. Yeah, I know there are those who will be voting for Donald Trump, and that's more power to you. I'm just giving you my opinion that in the 4 years that nobody else could step up after this president lost an election in 2020, yes, he did lose, and nobody else could step up to even challenge. I mean, really, when it came to even a challenge, even if we were to say, yes, he won enough delegates to get the presidential nomination, which obviously he did, but nobody stepped up to even come close. What's that say about your grand old party? It ain't so grand. There were members of the Republicans, you go back to 2016 when he won the election, that didn't want Donald Trump at that time to be the mantle. But he became it and stepped up. And then he won the presidency. And you remember at that time a number of people who were against him, even in his own party. The party he had to claim, because he was never going to be able to run as a Democrat, had to claim a party because he knew trying to run as an independent ain't going to happen. Although I think it would have been nice to try just to see what would have happened, what votes he could have pulled maybe from Republicans and Democrats back in 2016. But there were those who didn't want him then, and those who still don't want him now. And you're hearing about more of the quote-unquote party faithful who are jumping the ship, and so we got to vote for somebody else, can't vote for him. That's the best you can do over 4 years. On the Democratic side, the dishonesty of putting up Vice President Harris as your nominee is laughable. Not suggesting that perhaps she couldn't have been the nominee, but the process of when she went through to get it was no process at all. Democrats, who for months upon months supported President Biden and defended President Biden and made no bones about the fact that he was going to be the presidential nominee, that he was a man who could do the job, and he was up for the job, and he was not having any problems when it came to some of the situations that he encountered when it comes to trying to remember certain things and to speak eloquently about things that he had to speak on. I mean, all the defense that went on, and then one debate happened. One bad debate was all it took for the rats to jump ship and say, oh my gosh, he can't be our nominee. If I were a conspiracy theorist, I'd think it was a setup. The Democrats threw him out there knowing exactly what was going to happen, and they did it and made sure it happened early enough in the process to make sure they can get him out and bring in Kamala Harris. And is that who you really want representing your party? Did you have any other choice? Well, no, you didn't have any other choice because you didn't give yourself a choice. Talk about the undemocratic process of not even going through any kind of primary situation. Here you go, Kamala. Congratulations. It's yours. That's pathetic. Both parties have pathetic representations. That's what I say, anyway. Where's that third party candidate that you'd wish would really step up? Obviously, it's not RFK. And we already know that he's thinking of throwing his supporter. Has he done it officially behind former President Trump? I think so. So I know you're out there, and I know I've talked to you, and I've talked to people off air. I hear from people who are in the same kind of lines of thinking I am, and maybe we're not. We'll be in the minority when it comes to the vote, because there will be millions who will vote for Vice President Harris. There will be millions who vote for former President Trump. You know what's going to happen. And I understand that. And a lot of it comes down to, even if I don't like the candidates, perhaps you're voting for your candidate, not so much that you're voting for your candidate, but it's because you wouldn't vote for the other. It's a vote against by voting for. And maybe it comes down to, in a lot of ways, that whether you like it or not, you're voting for your party. I get that too. Political power. It's necessary. When it comes to the political representations of your personal beliefs. And you can run down any issue. You know the issues. If you want your issue presented, you've got to choose the party that's going to present it. Doesn't matter who is the president, by the way. It doesn't. When it comes to the issues that the party represents, the president will be the person who gets the attention. But it's the party that promotes certain issues, and it's always been that way. If not always, it's been darn close, year after year after year. I mean, when you hear the union representation, we're going to endorse Kamala Harris for president. Oh, my God, what groundbreaking news that is. Hold my breath and be still. In the same way, if you hear the National Rifle Association, the NRA, we're going to endorse former President Trump as our presidential candidate. Boy, shock me. And that's just two of the major ones you can think of. Again, you can run down list after list after list. Oh, yeah, there are some party faithful members that might step up and make noise about how they're switching their allegiances. But basically, you know what's going to happen. And it's always been that way. And it's more frustrating year after year. But this year, I think my frustrations have really reached the point where Election Day is what, about 70 days away? And I don't know what I'm doing. Might be the first time that is a protest vote, would you call it that, by not voting? Or I find that third party, somebody else who's going to, because right now, as I said, laughable. Are you in agreement? Or am I totally nuts? If you want to make a comment on it, love to hear from you. 989-752-6111. 989-752-6111. Again, Art's off today. Scheduled guest that we thought we'd have isn't happening today. So we're just off. And we're opening up the microphone and speaking. That's where it stands for me on August 28th, 2024. Where does it stand for you? And will your mind really be changed? I referenced the presidential debate coming up September 10th. And what's there, a couple more supposed to be after that? You know, where you really have your mind. Could you be, if you're voting for one or the other, you're not going to have your mind changed, by the way. That's not going to happen, and I know that. But are you a person who's are you wavering? Are you unsure? And so you watch the debates to figure out how your vote would go? Are you still there? I'm not there because I'm not going to watch or listen. And we're broadcasting the debates. I don't have to. I already know what's going to be said. I can tell you what each party is going to say, and I can tell you, too, the responses from each party as well, because they're already written. And as soon as the debate ends, they're going to hit send, and email boxes and texts will be sent and received as soon as it's over. And you can already write the script. Anyway, 989-752-6111 for your comments. Love to again hear from you and your thought process. 70 days away. Oh, unless you're early voting. Early voting is going to be going on at some point. You'll have to make your decision process even quicker than that. I'm not against early voting, although I sometimes question it, because what happens if you do make your vote and then something happens where the candidate you choose really does do something that makes you think, uh-oh, I can't vote that way. Then you got to go through that process. It's your morning team. It's the Art Lewis Show. Charlie and Art this morning on WSW. We're at 9:25.
Is your foundation showing signs of...
Yeah, you heard that announcement there about the program with Joel Volk. Brand new, just several weeks old now. And we encourage you to check out the program on Sundays at 5 with Joe, Generating Gratitude. It's a part of our entire local block at 6 o'clock on Sundays. That's What She Said with Christiana Malakara. 7 o'clock, United Shades of Grey with Kareem Bowen. And 8 o'clock, Mi Gente on Air with Larry Rodarte. Every Sunday, we have that localized programming block for you here on WSGW, 100.5 FM and 790 AM. Again, Charlie sitting in for Art this morning, 989-752-6111. We're just opening lines. Our guest we thought we'd have is fallen through, so we just throw open and give you a chance to make your comments. And again, love to hear what you're thinking when it comes to Election Day being 70 days away, just because what I'm ranting about is one thing. That's me. I'm quite sure that you are different. Did get a couple of emails. I should always mention that as much as we talk about being on air and you're calling in. A lot of people do reach out. We know we hear sometimes with Facebook posts or sending messages. You can reach me, Charlie, at WSGW.com. That's CHARLIE at WSGW.com. Bill from Saginaw, appreciated keeping it brief, Bill. Bill sends me a message that just simply said, yes! So I'll take it that means whatever I said, Bill, you're agreeing with, but I appreciate that. Thank you. And Larry from, where was Larry from? Let me double check. Well, Larry was asking about the debate I referenced, asking if it really was set. And from what I understand from all the news reports, yeah, I mean, I know there was some discussion about some of the rules and the way it was going to take place, so I just did a quick online search to make sure. And the latest, and this is from CNN, how former President Donald Trump on Tuesday announced that he has reached an agreement to participate in a September 10th debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, noting that the rules will be the same as the last CNN debate, which seemed to work out well for everyone. The rules will largely mirror the terms used by CNN for its June 27th debate, including that microphones will be muted as the other candidate speaks, and no studio audience will be present. Maybe the studio audience should be present. Anyway, again, this is a CNN reference just because of Larry asking, because I just assumed it was on. I thought everything had been reached. Although it does say in this CNN, and when was this? This was from yesterday, that the CNN note was posted. Still, the Harris campaign maintains that discussions are ongoing with ABC over whether microphones will remain on during the presidential debate, according to a source familiar with the matter. Okay, so even there is a debate over the debate. I still think it's been set. If something changes, you'll know about it. But if it happens, again, we will have coverage for you so you can hear what's going on. September 10th. That is a Tuesday. And by the way, I did some checking also because I made a reference. Yes, it will be on 100.5 FM that night. The Tigers playing that night a game that starts at 6:40. Quite possible the game could get over in time for us to have a debate coverage on 790 AM, which is our usual news source, but we moved to 100.5 as necessary. But you never know in baseball. I mean, if they have a game that goes quick, yes, but if you have extra innings, maybe a rain delay, maybe an injury, something that could cause. So that's how it's going to play out. Should the debate take place? Again, it seems it's set, but I don't know. A debate over the debate. Why not? It's 9:36 on WSGW. So just a little bit more ranting I'm going to do since I've got the microphone in front of me and I've got it turned on. Again, 989-752-6111. You want to chime in as well. And I really am interested in what your mindset is. Or is your mindset already? And I know from some of you listeners who call Art regularly, you're set, and that's fine. That's more power to you. But I know that there are some who've called, and some are still wondering what 2024 is going to be for a presidential vote. One of the reasons, as much as I have a distaste for both of the major political parties, which has been building, but I just think it's gotten to the point now heading into the presidential election, is that the investment in the time that's necessary isn't worth my time. I have more important things to do. Now, what could be more important than a presidential election? And I'm not discounting the importance, but the importance of other things that are going on, both personally and professionally, that will more than affect me in the way that my life is lived. Because whatever happens in Washington and with the White House, and frankly, whatever happens politically, even statewide or right down locally, it's going to happen. Yeah, I'll cast a vote, and either the candidate I want is going to win or not. And the issues I support may be issues that are represented and become part of the governance or not. But either way, life is going to go on. It always does. It has to. And adjustments are made. It's not easy sometimes, depending on what issue will affect you in different ways. Certainly, economic issues when it comes to taxation, that might be the most easy one to talk about, and how taxes are implemented and how you would be personally affected and what might do for you. And that's really something that's, your household budget. Because after all, you're living under a budget, unlike our politician friends seem to do. But when you go back the number of decades, I've been alive long enough to live, let's see, Democratic president, Republican president, Democratic president, Republican president, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. And I know it's the same for you. And political power. And that's just Washington. In the state of Michigan, the power changes have taken place. And not just at the top with being a president or a governor. The houses, whether it's the representatives or a Senate, the changes of power have taken place. And yet life goes on. Again, sometimes more difficult under different power structures than others, but it goes on. And so whatever happens, win or lose, it's going to happen. And people will make adjustments as necessary. People will ask politicians to fight back for causes they believe in. And you'll find ways to work with organizations that could be charitable or otherwise to maybe help you in situations because suddenly you're in a position where everything was fine and now it's not because of some political power structure that changed and some issue that changed or some legislation that was passed. But when it comes down to it, you're living your personal life. And that's going back to what I said. Whatever happens is going to happen, and life is going to go on. It always does, and it has to. We're at 9:40 on WSW. We've got to take another break and come back with more. 9:40, as I said, Charlie in for Art this morning on WSGW.
It's that time again.
Rear studios of WSGW. And WSGW is online with Stormmaster Exteriors.
Okay, a little housekeeping here we got to do for you on WSGW. We got a couple of more emails, and I appreciate, including the one, Don, thank you, who says he's trying to call, but he's getting a response that the person you are calling is unavailable. Uh-oh. We might have a phone issue. We experienced yesterday what many of you did. The power outages that took place, we were affected. Our computer systems got knocked, and our phones are computer run, and so we're going to have to double check to see if we are able to do so. I know that I'm assuming because of some other things that have been going on in this building that we might be able to be calling out. I wonder if people cannot get through. We're going to double check on that. Don, thanks for the heads up on that. Unless it's your specific issue, that would not be good. And so, just a couple of quick words on that. Because I know yesterday when we had some power situations, I know we heard from some listeners. We, like many of you in your businesses, we are run by computer. And when we took a power hit, we were on the air. We didn't lose our broadcasting capability of being on air, but we lost our computers. And everything is through a computer. And you know what happens with computers? They don't boot up immediately. And for our system, we are running 5 radio stations in this building, and there's a central system, a central brain, if you will. And when that's affected, it takes time for it to reconfigure itself. And so we were having some issues for a little while. They seemed to get all cleared up, and we were then broadcasting appropriately again. And we appreciate the patience of listeners who were letting us know at that time. But in the same way, our phones are, like many of you, utilizing a system of computers to run our phone system. And so we're going to have to double check on that and ensure that things are appropriate when it comes to our ability to make and receive phone calls. Also, I want to do a quick housekeeping on what you heard, maybe the announcement for Michigan football. Michigan football kicks off on Saturday. Hey, a shout out to our great Michigan football sponsors, including Premier Tile and Stone in Midland. The Bay Area's first choice for quality porcelain and decorative tile, Premier Tile and Stone in Midland, is our presenting sponsor for Michigan football this year. And we appreciate the being on board as the presenting sponsor again, Premier Tile and Stone in Midland. Also on board to present Michigan football this year is your sponsors, Schaefer and Beerline in Frankenmuth, your Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Lingual Equipment of Saginaw, your one-stop Kubota shop. Midland Radio, you can stay connected wherever you work or play with Midland Radio. Wolfiles Ace Hardware in Saginaw. Weiss Equipment Company of Frankenmuth. Malakote Law Office. Mid-State Sewer Service. Antique Warehouse. Auto House of Linwood. Wood Reviver. Euclid Avenue Coins. Bicycle Village. And Valley Heating and Cooling. All on board for Michigan football. Kicking off this Saturday night, 6:30. That game that will be on 100.5 FM. Tigers will be on 790 AM. Michigan football on 100.5 FM. Michigan in the big house hosting Fresno State, your defending national champion Wolverines. New coach, but same Michigan tradition. And it starts on Saturday night on WSW, again, 100.5 FM. And remember, you have to listen to the broadcast of Michigan football over your radio frequency due to rules that we wish didn't exist, but they do. We cannot stream Michigan football. I want to remind listeners about that. And by the way, good luck to Michigan State. Michigan State on Friday going to be kicking off its season as college football is getting back. All right, we're at 9:50. Also, another email, and this was Mike in Saginaw. Yeah, Mike, I don't have an answer for you. Mike's question, Charlie, hear what you're saying when it comes to the presidential candidates and not voting, but how do you... I lost it here in my email. I've got several of them coming through. Should have just printed it out. Imagine that, using a printer. How do you vote to get the representation you want on the issues that matter to you? If you don't... I get it. And that goes back to something I mentioned. As much as there's a distaste for the candidates, and dare I, even further than that, in some ways, the parties themselves and members of the parties. But yet there are issues that matter to you, concerns that matter to you that you want represented. So now you're back, the old cliche, we'll hold our nose and we'll go in and make our vote. Yeah. So you make that third-party vote because you don't want to vote for either of the major parties. And yet knowing that's third party's not going to win. And so even if that third party does represent your values, your beliefs, your concerns, what matters to you. The political power that's set up in this country, which at some point will be broken. I don't know when that point's going to be. It's got to be. It's got to be. So you have. So my advice, Mike, is if you really have some issues that one of the two major parties represents, even if you don't like the candidate, then you vote for that party, knowing that that party is going to represent what you hope will happen, so that you, when it comes to your, I was mentioning, whatever happens, life goes on, you have to adjust to it. Well, what party represents those issues that you don't want to adjust to as much as the next of the next issue? Who's going to fight for what you believe more? And then you make that vote. And I get it. I know how that goes down. It's been that way. All right, we'll take a final break, come back, and get things closed out here on WSGW. Charlie and for Art this morning, we're at 9:53.
With a focus on memory care.
One more break to take, which we'll do in just a moment. Here on WSGW, Charlie for Art this morning. Apologies, we are having a phone issue. A couple more emails. Thank you, Jim from Midland and Mary from Saginaw, confirming, trying to call and getting a message says, sorry, can't get through, basically. So we'll investigate that, and appreciate you putting up with me this hour. It's not that I didn't want to hear your opinions or what you thought. But apparently you couldn't tell me if you wanted to. So that's what we're dealing with. Next hour, Jonathan Dent, Christiana Macar sitting in for the 10 o'clock hour of the Art Lewis Show. I'll be returning at 11 for the Focus Show here on WSGW. In the meantime, the news is next. We'll head to the 10 o'clock news from CBS and then from the WSGW newsroom as well. And the more, the Art Lewis Show continues.
The campaign activities and photographers at the site. But according to the Trump campaign, there was no physical altercation, and a spokesperson told CBS News the campaign was prepared to release footage of the event to prove it.
Hundreds of Israeli troops entered the West Bank overnight after what the IDF calls months of rising attacks. Correspondent Imtiaz Tayab reports from Tel Aviv.
The Israeli military is carrying out a major operation in a number of Palestinian towns and refugee camps. In fact, it's being described as one of the largest operations in the occupied West Bank since the Second Intifada, which was over 20 years ago. Now, we understand that at least 9 Palestinians have been killed.
People in the Midwest and Northeast are bracing for triple-digit record-breaking heat today. This woman's helping out in Chicago.
We are giving water to people in the community. We're blessing people with water because it is a very hot day.
Experts say heat may be partly to blame for a growing insect population in the Northeast, where a man in New Hampshire's died from eastern equine encephalitis. That's a mosquito-borne disease. Medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder.
What can we be doing? The really most important thing is to be controlling the mosquitoes. You want to drain your standing water, you want to be spraying, and there are some newer technologies there to control mosquitoes that don't involve pesticides. But we still have a lot to go in terms of developing treatments or vaccines.
La Tomatina is underway in Spain. Thousands of people have been hurling tomatoes at each other at an annual festival in eastern Buñol. 7 trucks drove in 120 tons of ripe, juicy fruit for the famous food fight. Participants climbing over each other to reach the big prize, an Iberian ham at the top of a slippery pole. This is CBS News.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Get renter's insurance to protect the things that make your place a home, including coverage for theft or damage. Visit Progressive.com.
Quick question. Are you providing...
Live from the 100.5 and 790 newsroom. This is WSGW News.
Cloudy skies and 74 degrees at 10:05. Good morning, I'm Mike Percha. Fire investigators are working to determine the cause of a fire that damaged a home in Bay City on Monday afternoon. Around 4:20, crews responded to reports of a structure fire in the 300 block of Michigan Avenue, finding smoke and fire coming from the second story. Firefighters entered the building, extinguished it, and ensured it hadn't spread. Officials say no one was injured, and mutual aid was provided by Bangor Township and Portsmouth Township fire departments. Bronner's Christmas Wonderland in Frankenmuth is hiring workers for the fall and holiday seasons. Positions include sales clerks, cashiers, ornament lettering, customer service, and more. All positions will start at $14 an hour, going up to $21 an hour for work on Saturday evenings and Sundays. Bronner's will be holding a hiring fair September 4th from 1 to 5 p.m. with on-the-spot interviews. Applicants are asked to use the south entrance. For more information, call 989-652-9931 or visit bronners.com/employment. Saginaw's Splash Park, located at the Frank N. Anderson Celebration Park, will close for the 2024 season on September 2nd at 7 p.m. The park remains open daily from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. until Labor Day, offering residents a last chance to enjoy the recreational space. Despite staffing challenges, the park successfully operated throughout summer. The Celebration Park includes Boulder Park and walking paths that will remain open, with the pavilion available for reservations through October 31st. For a reservation, call 989-759-1662. Renew Physical Therapy is reopening a clinic inside the Saginaw YMCA. After a brief closure due to staffing changes, the clinic is again accepting new patients for a variety of physical therapy services starting September 10th. A YMCA membership is not required to receive treatment with Renew at the Saginaw Y. For more information or to request an appointment or a free 15-minute screening, visit renewpt.com. WSGW News Time 10:07.
It's that time of year.
W News Time 10:08. The weather forecast is coming up. An arsonist from the Upper Peninsula will spend decades in prison for a 2021 murder. Hope Snyder of Kinchlow was sentenced for the murder of Jeffrey Grant and his 2 dogs, pleading no contest to setting his home on fire while he was sleeping. She'll spend the next 35 to 60 years behind bars. Snyder messaged friends about her plan to steal Grant's truck and money and burn down his house. After setting the fire, she fled and was arrested at Detroit Metro Airport. Dangerous heat is making it tough on people who work outside, those experiencing homelessness and high school sports practices. Dr. Roy Elrod is an emergency room doctor at Detroit Receiving Hospital. He says coaches know how to handle these conditions.
Many of the coaches, if they've been doing it for a while, they understand that this can be a very risky time, particularly when it gets, the heat is constantly hot. It's different when we have just one day of elevated heat, but when there are multiple days, there's always a greater risk of those can have heat-related illnesses.
Elrod says emergency room visits are up due to the heat and people should monitor how they're feeling. Developers who are tearing down Northville Downs and opening up the river will be receiving $2 million in state incentives. The Strategic Fund Board approved a proposal yesterday morning that would transfer about 8 acres of property into the Wayne County Land Bank. The redevelopment of the former racetrack site in downtown Northville includes opening up the Rouge River and creating a new park. New homes will also be built as part of the project. Groundbreaking is expected next month. WSGW News Time 10:10. I'm Mike Percha.
Jonathan Dent filling in for Charlie Rood, filling in for Art Lewis here in hour number 2. We'll hear from Charlie again during the Focus program. We're playing a little bit of a tag team here this morning. But speaking of a team, I'm joined by Christiana Malacara here. Christiana, good morning.
Good morning, Jonathan. I love being here when, I don't like it when Art's gone, but I love being in here, being able to help and be on Art Lewis show.
It's always a fun conversation.
It is.
Yeah.
But I did realize it takes 3 of us to replace one Art.
Yeah. So
there's that.
Come back. We'll have Matt Fallon filling in for the rest of the week. Art will be back with us next week. So we're certainly looking forward to that. In the meantime, we've got a great conversation for this hour. Although summer may be coming to its unofficial close here this weekend, there's still plenty to do in the outdoors. And we're joined by Brian Keenan-Leckel. He is the Director of Saginaw County Parks and Recreation. Brian, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. So, as I mentioned, fall is right around the corner. What do things look like at Saginaw Parks and Rec right now?
Yeah, we're in an interesting transition right now, wrapping up a fantastic summer season, another one of our busiest seasons on record the last couple of years, especially out at Haithco Recreation Area. So we're transitioning out. All of our seasonal staff who have done a fantastic job keeping our parks clean, safe, and fun all summer are starting to head back to high school or college or their other jobs. And we are transitioning into a great slate of fall programming. So I'm excited to talk to you about a few of those today.
Awesome. How many parks do you guys manage?
Saginaw County Parks and Rec manages 7 facilities, just under 1,000 acres of recreational land, and just over 20 miles of trailway as well, paved trail, including the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail, where folks are out working hard this morning after the high winds and storms moving through yesterday.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Yeah, that's a lot of literal ground to cover. So, just out of curiosity, real quick, how many seasonal staff did you have?
So Saginaw County Parks works with 6 full-time staff, myself and 5 others, and then we hire between 30 and 35 seasonals, from lifeguards to booth attendants, park rangers, programmers, as well as seasonal supervisors out at Haithco.
That's a great opportunity for those students to hop into seasonally.
It's a great summer job where you get exposed to the outdoors, of course, and you're also providing a great service where, again, at Haithco, we'll see over 60,000 residents come through just in the summer months, and the folks that work very hard out there are providing a great service to them, no doubt.
So you hinted at the summer. Summer's coming to an end. Could we recap the summer? Like, what happened and what kind of event did we have? I know you said you like to classify this as parks, trails, and programs.
Absolutely. Starting back this summer, we do tally our gate entries at both Immerman Memorial Park and Haithco Recreation Area, and we no longer charge gate fees for Saginaw County residents. There's a small fee for out-of-county, but quantifying that, in 2015, which is the last year we charged gate fees for county residents, we welcomed just over 25,000 patrons that year in 2015. This will be our 3rd consecutive summer of welcoming over 100,000 patrons between Immerman and Haithco, just between Memorial and Labor Day. So more than a 4 times increase through that, just in under a decade. So folks are using their parks, they're valuing their parks, and they're getting outside more. And so we love to see that. We love to provide this great quality of life service.
What do you see people using the parks for? Because I know I've been to at least one party out at Haithco, but what's the use that people are getting out of these?
Yeah, so starting with parties, pavilion reservations from high school family reunions, birthday parties, baby showers, gender reveals, all sorts, the full spectrum, really. About 300 pavilion reservations out in the parks this summer.
Wow.
And so those each bring their own group and crowd looking to have a great time. But we also have those that'll maybe just come out for a morning hike or a walk, or same around the evening sunset time. We'll also have folks that'll bring a wagon full of a picnic basket and blankets, and they're going to hang out at the park the whole day and utilize the swimming beach and splash pad out at Haithco, among others. But there is really something for everybody out in the parks, and we see that. Last night was our last evening lake swim, open water swim for triathlon athletes that are training for events. They get to swim around the open water at Haithco. And again, something for everybody out there, but we do see a full spectrum of activity, no doubt.
All I heard was 300 pavilion parties. Wow. There's a lot of celebration happening there. That's really beautiful for the whole region, actually, to come together and use these beautiful spaces that Saginaw County provides. When it comes to programs, what were we looking at in the summer programs, and are some of those annual?
Absolutely. A great summer program that we offer, summer play dates. We do about 35 of those each year, and we have the ability through mobile recreation vehicles to take those across the county. So not just in our own county parks that we operate, but also in the city of Saginaw and down in Bridgeport and out across the county. We're taking programs, playdate style, hour and a half, 2 hours long. It might be anything from arts and crafts to music on the move, great activities like that. And we had the YMCA as a partner who would bring either lunch or an afternoon snack, depending on timing. And we've seen as many as 100 folks come out to their neighborhood parks and enjoy those activities. So that's kind of been a great staple, and throughout the week we're offering those. We also have some larger scale programs. We kick off the summer with a youth fishing festival, Catch Me If You Can. That was our 34th annual this year. Hard to believe.
Wow, that sounds fun.
Yep, so a couple hundred kiddos came out and got a fishing pole and got to enjoy the lake. We just wrapped up another large-scale program, our Children's Fun Night at Haithco. We had over 40 community vendors providing giveaways, back-to-school supplies, that type of thing. And we finish it off with a movie in the park. We have a great inflatable movie screen that, again, we can set up in our parks and across other facilities across the county. So we show movies in the park, all sorts of great activities this summer.
Are these activities that have been going on for years, or has the push kind of come with the free gate fees?
We've definitely increased programming over the last, I would say, just under 10 years. We've really put a focus on programming because I mentioned the folks coming out to walk their dog, but some folks might need that activity or facilitated event that's going to get them outdoors and get them engaged in the outdoors. And so we have put more of a focus on providing that facilitated activity in the parks. Definitely over the last 10 and especially the last 5, we've really ramped up the amount of programs that we're offering and the amount of those we're serving through programming.
So if someone wants to go spend the day at Haithco Park, we'll say, what is there to do just on a normal day? We're not talking any special programming necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. Haithco is probably our largest array of activities that you can do. We have a swimming beach, of course, on the lake there, as well as a splash pad and new playground that was added in 2022. So this is our 3rd year of operation on the splash pad, and those are open daily from 11 to 7:30 through Labor Day, so still a little bit of time to get out and enjoy those. We also do boat rental. We have a boat livery at Haithco, so you can rent a paddle boat or a rowboat, canoes, kayaks, even stand-up paddle boards. It's a great lake for beginners. If you've never kayaked before, you're looking to fine-tune your skills or try stand-up paddleboarding for the first time, our lifeguards are going to get you fitted with a life jacket. They're going to get you on your boat. And then we also have support available. If something were to happen out in the lake, we have a rescue boat there. We'll come out and help you out, get you back to shore if needed. But it's a great lake for beginners and experts alike. We have a lot of folks that'll bring their own equipment or rent ours and do some fishing from the boats. It's a great fishery there. Largemouth bass to last year a 42-inch northern pike was caught. One of the bigger fish, just a trophy fish anywhere across the state, let alone right here in a small lake in Saginaw County. So great fishery. I mentioned of course, the pavilion reservations. Then there's also grills and picnic tables spread throughout the park. So even if you don't have a formal reservation, but you have a dozen or so family members that want to get together, we'll have folks that'll just come out, claim a grill and a table by a shade tree, and enjoy the day or afternoon with us.
Awesome. We're talking Parks and Recreation in Saginaw County with the director, Brian Keenan Leckel. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to get into some of the behind the scenes of what exactly goes on at Parks and Recreation. That's coming up.
Lehman's Green Apple Barn is...
Welcome back to the Art Lewis Show. Jonathan Dent filling in for Art, at least for this hour on this Wednesday morning. The Art Lewis Show is presented by Westside Decorating Center. You can visit them at 5789 State Street in Saginaw or go online to westsidedecoratingcenter.com. We're talking with the director of Saginaw County Parks and Recreation, Brian Keenan Leckel. Brian, before we went to break, I said I wanted to get into some of the behind the scenes when it comes to Parks and Recreation in Saginaw, and where better to start than the guy who's in charge of it all. What got you here?
Well, here into this role, it started with a degree, being born and raised here in Saginaw and enjoying the great recreational opportunities in my childhood and in early life. But then a degree at Central Michigan University in Community Leisure Services Administration.
Wow.
Absolutely. And after that, a master's in public administration. But I was working locally here at the YMCA and then joined the county team almost 10 years ago now. It'll be in February. But found a great home, feel very fortunate and honored to do the work that we are able to do to provide such a great quality of life service to county residents and folks in our region. But yeah, we have a lot going on behind the scenes at Saginaw County Parks.
So 10 years ago, when you joined the team, I'm guessing it looked a little bit different than it looks now. What has changed in that time? What's improved?
Yeah, we've added another full-time staff member. So I mentioned our seasonal staff of roughly 35, and it was formerly 5 full-time and now 6 full-time, managing that almost 1,000 acres of land and parks and trails. So we've added staff. We've ramped up programming, as I mentioned earlier, and I think we've added a lot of amenities. I mentioned the splash pad a few years ago. One of the earliest projects was a trail connection between Saginaw and Bay counties, and we continue to go out and seek feedback from county residents and those in our region on what continued improvements we can do. We do that through 2 main guiding documents, a 5-year recreation plan, as well as a few years ago we completed an ADA transition plan update to focus on accessibility in the parks. We're guided by a 10-person Recreation Commission, appointed by the Board of Commissioners, and some by the seat they hold, the Road Commission, the Planning Director, and others, but 10-person Planning Commission as well.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. There's probably a lot of tie-in with other county organizations and oversight in that way as well. You mentioned a guiding document, the 5-year recreation plan. That was pretty recently updated, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. About a year ago, or almost a year ago now, in the fall of 23, we went out for public feedback, surveying our existing facilities, what folks would like added, how they're enjoying the programs we offer, what they might like to see changed. And so we got all that feedback and kind of packaged it into this 5-year recreation plan. This was our first year offering what's known as a joint plan to other municipalities in the county that may not have a 5-year recreation plan in some instances, or were also due to update theirs. And by combining resources, we're able to save a little bit, but also be at the table planning together. And so we saw 6 other communities across Saginaw County come together with us and form that 5-year recreation plan document.
So what's on the docket for the next 5 years?
We've got a lot of plans, a lot of excitement. Trail and trail connections is a big focus, and that was neat to have the different communities that have existing trails and how we might connect those. Also, water trails are becoming much more popular across the state, so paddling opportunities. Here in Saginaw County, we have hundreds of miles of streams and waterways that folks are, in some instances, just getting out to explore for the first time, but some absolutely great resources that we're excited. So both water and land trailway connections, continued improvements to our existing amenities, whether it be updating pavilions or new playground features, and really, again, all focused on the lens of accessibility. So trying to make our parks available for all has been a big focus too.
So the adjustments that you made that are EDA adjustments, what were some of those, and at which parks?
Yeah, so Haithco Recreation Area is one that we targeted with the addition of the splash pad and playground. A lot of the ADA improvements, of course, are centered around the wheelchair and the requirements and widths and turning radiuses and things like that. So you see a lot of maybe just a small example, gravel walkway turning to concrete, for instance. And yes, that the focus is and the requirements are focused on the wheelchair, but it does benefit anybody with a mobility device, whether it be a walker or a cane, or even a mom pushing a stroller, or a dad pushing a stroller, or dragging a wagon, those types of things. But specifically on the playground, we added the first We Go Round, a universally acceptable university. I'm going to get there. A universally accessible merry-go-round. So folks in wheelchairs can wheel right in. We added a beach wheelchair, floating beach wheelchair, and a mobility mat to get down and into the water, and just an incredible transition or transformation in terms of folks using our parks and coming and utilizing that equipment in those spaces. And also, it just is a much nicer looking facility too when you have concrete over gravel and those kinds of things. So there's been some neat improvements in that realm.
So were those changes based off of this this kind of survey that was given out? Did you see feedback in that way?
Absolutely. So the 5-year recreation plan references our ADA transition plan update, and both of those had large-scale public input opportunities where thousands of people were surveyed and provided feedback, from the youngest in our community to the oldest, and folks of all abilities, and engaging specific partners that might serve those with disabilities, those kinds of things. Very intentional in that way, yeah.
And so I'm going to shift a little bit here and talk about the region and the connections that Saginaw County has with the region, because the Saginaw, I say our because I go to them quite often. Our parks, they service many people. You do not have to be from Saginaw County, so I guess let's make that clear first.
Absolutely. Our parks are open and available to everyone. I mentioned the small gate fee, nominal gate fee at Immerman and Haithco. That's only during our season, Labor Day or Memorial Day to Labor Day, and really only from about 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. So folks visiting outside of that season are not charged anything to come and use that. In the trail connections, of course, we'll have folks that might trailer their bike down to the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail or those kinds of things, but we'll also have folks from Bay County that can now ride into Saginaw County, or from Midland riding into Saginaw. So there's neat connections that way too.
And fairly easily on these the Great Lakes Bay Regional Trails. So we made some changes. I say we again. Here we go. You made some changes and some growth in that connection, but there's still some work underway. Can we review that?
Yeah, absolutely. The Great Lakes Bay Regional Trail Group actually came out of when the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail was built and completed. There was a nonprofit entity focused on that. When they completed the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail, rather than hopping on their bikes and riding into the sunset, they said, well, what can we do next? So they transferred that 501c3 status to what became known as the Great Lakes Bay Regional Trail. In 2008, it funded a tri-county path study, it was called at the time. And that was a guiding document to look at how we could connect ultimately the Bay City trail systems, the Midland from the Tridge out, as well as the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail, how we could link our 3 community trails. And we've been picking away at that and adding miles and miles of trails each year to what will ultimately become a 60-mile loop network between Saginaw Bay and Midland counties.
What's the process like when you're working kind of two ends of the same problem with other counties?
Can't say enough positive things about the Great Lakes Bay Regional Trail Group and that entity. It's a volunteer board. Some folks from Parks and Rec like myself, but folks from road commissions and planning departments and engineering firms, and who all have experience and connection to these well-utilized systems. And so we come together and plan and seek funding, and then work with local municipalities who are also looking to add trailway. And so we kind of take those projects as they come. Of course, we'd love to build in a straight line from A to Z, but sometimes you build L first, and then you got to build backwards from there. You kind of take them as they come and as funding allows. But some incredible progress has been made across the last 10 and even the last 5 years, including a trail that opened just this year, the Tittabawassee River Trail, northwest Saginaw County to the Midland County line, from Hayes Park, just northwest of Freeland, out to the Midland County line. Beautiful trail system there. Encourage you to check that one out.
You mentioned the magic F word, funding. Is Parks and Rec exclusively funded through the county? What other sources are there for you guys?
Yeah, so Saginaw County Parks is fortunate to be funded through a countywide millage since the early 90s, and that funds a majority of our operation, but we use those funds to leverage additional grant resources for these capital projects. So you'd see that very often, that we'll use a portion of millage funding to go out and get 3 or 4 times the amount for a capital project. The Great Lakes Bay Regional Trail is unique with its own 501c3 status, where they're able to fundraise from private foundations and individuals and kind of gather a pool of funding that then they can come to a community like Saginaw County or like Frankenmuth Township in Bay or Midland County or Midland Township, and we can bring in those matching resources for someone that may not have the capital on hand to go out and match a grant. So that's where the Regional Trail Group has been very successful and very unique in that they're working with local communities in kind of this public partnership.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking with Brian Keenan-Leckel. He's the director of Saginaw County Parks and Recreation, and we'll have more when we come back. And we're back on the Art Lewis Show. Jonathan Dent and Christiana Malacara filling in for Art on this Wednesday morning. Art will be back with us next week, and I think Matt Fallon is scheduled to host tomorrow and Friday as well. But for right now, we're talking with Brian Keenan-Leckel. He's the director of Saginaw County Parks and Recreation. And we talked a little bit about what happened in the summer, but believe it or not, fall is around the corner. We're starting to feel the fall weather creep into the forecast a little bit. What do you got going on for the autumn?
A lot of great programming happening. I'll mention a few. You can also find more information on the Saginaw County Parks website or Facebook page, or give our office a call as well, and we'll talk through some of these with you. But the next great program coming up after we wrap up our seasonal operations out at Haithco Recreation Area, the 2 times a year we allow dogs to come into Haithco and swim in the lake. We have our Soggy Doggy event on Wednesday, September 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. So you can bring your doggos out and have them enjoy the lake, usually 40 or 50 folks attending with their furry friends. And we do a series of dog programs through the year as well, but Soggy Doggy is definitely one of the most popular. Just a couple weeks after that, we'll have our 3rd annual Pints and Paddles event, which is a great event on the Tittabawassee River. You can either bring your own kayak equipment or you can rent one from us and our partners. We will launch you in Freeland on the Tittabawassee River, and you will stop 6.5 miles downstream at Immerman Memorial Park. We'll enjoy the pints portion of the Pints and Paddles. So a great Saturday, September 21st event that day. The following day, which will be a busy weekend for us, the Great Lakes Bay Regional Trail Mix is happening, and that's a great community engagement activity for folks to come out and learn about the trail connections we've built and utilize those trails. But on Sunday, September 22nd, the Great Lakes Bay Regional Trail Mix is taking place. You can register for that on the Great Lakes Bay Regional Trail website. That's just a great day where folks can get out, enjoy the trails. Then we come together for a luncheon at the Sports Zone, where we're going to tell you about projects we've built this year and what we have upcoming in the following year. Shortly after that, Be Well strides towards wellness, a 3K, 5K, 10K starting at the YMCA in Saginaw along the Riverwalk. Each route does go through the Children's Zoo, so one of the most unique 5K, 10K, and 3K courses, and really something for everyone. That 3K is roughly a half-hour, 45-minute walk, essentially through the zoo and back to the Y, with a great slate of vendor activities and setup, free lunch and ice cream and other things going on after that event right there on the Y's campus. And then the last one I'll mention is a very popular program for us, so much so that we added a spring edition as well a few years back. Our rail trail rides for seniors on the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail is October 8th, 9th, and 10th. And those are daytime programs for an hour-long ride for seniors or those with mobility concerns that can't necessarily walk or bike along the trails. We're going to get you out for a fall color tour on the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail on a golf cart October 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Early October, that's a great time to do something like that. Not too cold, but you'll still get the colors and the trees and all that. When we're looking at outside of season, so your season is coming to an end here for Labor Day. Parks will remain open, I presume. Are they open year-round for people to enjoy?
Absolutely. Our parks are open 365 days a year. And so we've had folks, even last Christmas, I think it touched 50 degrees. And so we saw, 100 plus folks utilizing some of our park facilities on Christmas Day and beyond. So we are open year round, absolutely available and open for all. If you have specific requests, you can give our office a call. But of course, just stopping in to take a hike or a bike, parks are open year round. Absolutely.
And I realize that you just threw out a bunch of upcoming events that are going to be happening around the county. Is there anywhere people can go to find all of those written out so they don't have to try and write them down as we're saying them here?
Absolutely. SaginawCounty.com/parks or Googling Saginaw County Parks gets you to our website. We do have a pretty active Facebook page as well, Saginaw County Parks on Facebook. We also have a quarterly newsletter that we mail to folks' homes. So if you're interested in joining our mailing list, we'd be happy to add you to that quarterly newsletter. Then we also drop thousands of those across the county. So at your local municipal office, at a library, at a daycare center, you can find those quarterly newsletters that give you the updates kind of in real time as we're going forward.
Physical copies?
Like a paper?
Print edition.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Impressive. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back for one more segment here on The Art Lewis Show.
From cars and trucks.
Welcome back to The Art Lewis Show. Jonathan Dent and Christiana Malakara filling in for Art this morning. We're talking with Brian Keenan-Leckel. He's the director of the Saginaw County Parks and Recreation Department. And Brian, last segment you rattled off a bunch of different events and activities that are going to be going on around the county. That doesn't happen without some partners, does it?
You're absolutely right. A lot of great partners. And so that can range in a variety of ways. So with Paddle and Pints, for instance, that I mentioned, we have the YPN is bringing folks out. So the Young Professionals Network is a partner on that one. We also have a livery that's going to bring in the 70 or 80 boats we might need to rent. But locally, just a number of fantastic partners. We'll offer wintertime programs at public libraries across the county. We'll be in the Children's Museum. I mentioned the YMCA a few times. We've hosted programs there. We also have municipal partners. So I mentioned that inflatable movie screen the Village of Merrill. For the last 3 summers in August, I've taken the movie screen out and showed a movie out in Merrill. So if you are working for or have a connection to your local municipality that might be interested in hosting some of our Saginaw County Parks programs, encourage you to reach out. If you're a nonprofit that's looking to get the word out and attend some of our events where we have 1,000+ folks, please feel free to reach out. But yeah, we have a number of fantastic partners and partnerships.
And how could these partners find you if they do have an idea or, somewhere that they see a void, in their community and are like, hey, we need a movie over here?
Absolutely. So our website that I mentioned earlier, saginawcounty.com/parks, you're going to find email, phone number right there. That's probably the easiest way. We do both of those on a daily basis, whether it's phone call or email, or you want to set up a meeting for coffee to chat about some things. Open to all of those and open to all types of partnerships. So I'd absolutely encourage folks to reach out.
So these partnerships, this leads into people getting excited about parks and trails and programs, and all these things happen with also volunteers, correct?
Absolutely. Volunteers are critical to our operation as well, from volunteer committees that help to plan some of these larger scale events, also to delivery of the event. So Catch Me If You Can Youth Fishing Festival. We've had a variety of partners who are taking the fishing poles that are provided and tying that hook on for the first time for kiddos and helping them get a worm on there if needed. So from that to youth baseball coaches down at Hoyt Park in the summer to organizations that might bring employees out and want to do a few-hour workday in the morning, whether it's trimming trails or doing shoreline cleanups, all sorts of different activities. Planting trees, we get those folks reaching out quite a bit too in the springtime and the fall. So yes, a variety of needs for volunteers. And if we can't find a need for you, I likely know someone who could use you, and I'll help you to connect those
I bet
dots.
you do. Yeah, I bet you do. With the list of partnerships that you have, there's a lot of connections being made at the parks. So just this past year, correct me if I'm wrong, Headwater opened.
Yes, for just over a year now, Saginaw River Headwaters Rec Area. So a bit of a long name there, but in the city of Saginaw, 334 acres right at the confluence of the Tittabawassee and Shiawassee rivers, which is just a critical point of the watershed, where literally 500 miles of streams and waterways come together from out in the Thumb, south into Oakland County, out past St. Charles with the Bad River, into Mount Pleasant, the Chippewa. All of that flows right through and forms the Saginaw River, right on the corner of this property, Saginaw River Headwaters Rec Area, 3 miles of trail system out there. Absolutely unique views of wetlands and natural environment, but from the top of a 20-acre, 85-foot high landfill in the center, you can see Old Town and downtown Saginaw, just provide a really unique space for folks right here in the city of Saginaw, which is extremely neat.
So what was this space before?
Most recently, it was General Motors for almost 100 years, Saginaw Malleable Iron Factory. It had ties to almost every type of industrialization that touched Saginaw, coal and salt mining, lumbering, but it was also, given its place on the watershed, a critical place for over 10,000 years of documented use for indigenous peoples as well. And now being able to restore it to its earliest and most natural state has been an honor and a really neat part of our work.
And the restoration process of this, how long did that take, and is there more to be done?
The build-up and the planning, this property is actually owned by the state of Michigan and leased to the county of Saginaw, which is a unique and first partnership of its kind. That took the better part of 6 years to get in place. Development took another few, and now we are open and accessible for folks to come check us out. And we've also received now a 3-year cycle of funding for habitat restoration, and that'll kick off this fall. Includes the planting of 1,000 trees and other pollinating beneficial habitat, and so we'll see that work continue among other projects out there.
Who's planting all these trees?
That will be a great volunteer effort. We're working with a partner at the Saginaw Basin Land Conservancy. They will coordinate some large-scale volunteer days. So whether it's individuals that want to bring the family out or more the corporate side of things with 20 employees or anywhere in between, there'll be volunteer opportunities to do that, absolutely.
I had a feeling that you were either going to recruit Jonathan and I to get 60 miles of trail or hop on a kayak or, yes, plant some trees. So
I think we've got a shovel in the shed
yeah,
somewhere.
there's There has to be something back there.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us. I think we just scratched the surface of kind of everything there is to talk about with Saginaw County Parks and Rec, and we're going to have to get you back on sometime, maybe with Art in the future.
Appreciate you having me so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Keenan-Leckel, he's the director of Saginaw County Parks and Recreation. We'll be back to close out after this.
Jim Wilson, it looks like the...
That'll wrap up this edition of the Art Lewis Show, presented by Westside Decorating Center. Coming up is the Focus program. Charlie Rood tags back in, and this morning we're focusing on Westside Decorating Center. So you stick around for that. Then the Farm Show, Jonathan Dent, myself, filling in for Terry Henney after that. Stick around for all of that, but first, the news.
Broadcasting from the